Okay, it's Mike, the Fortean Digital Shaman, the Lord of O.R.D. Gonna try another reading. Hopefully by the time you see this, I had already finished reading the last, or published the last reading of Journeys Out of the Body by Robert A. Monroe. And now we're going to read a book from Jacques Vallee, Passport to Magonia, From Folklore to Flying Saucers. Allegedly, this is a classic. I've heard a lot about Jacques Vallee from people in the cryptid and UFO and paranormal circles. So, let's see. This is the one. This is archive.org. Passports to Magonia on UFOs, folklore, and the parallel worlds. And I'm assuming they're the same book. Maybe I should use the other cover. Visitors from Another World. First published 2 decades ago. Jacques Vallee. Now this is much older than that now. This is probably a 50-year-old book or more. It's got to be more than that. A stunning exploration of the evidence of extraterrestrial contact has become a classic in the field. An eminent scientist, mathematician, and thinker who has been counseled by at NASA. Vallee synthesizes folklore, historical, and modern-day eyewitness records and astronomical research to reveal a startling, undeniable pattern of fact that throughout history and across widely diverse cultures there is an absolutely consistent tradition of visitation from another world. And there's this debate whether it's like physical, but what that world is called and how the encounters are interpreted have been influenced by the prevailing beliefs of each era and place. Yet, as Vallee masterfully demonstrates, beneath the superficial differences, there is a fundamental similarity of experience that can only lead us to a breathtaking conclusion. Passport to Magonia also contains Jacques Vallee's comprehensive catalog detailing the circumstances of 900 encounters spanning a period of 100 years. "How will you go back?" said the woman. "Nay, that I do not know, because I have heard that for those who enter fairyland there is no going back. They must go on and go further and go through it." R. McDonald Robinson, Selected Highland Tales. From ghoulies to ghosties, long-legged beasties, leggedy beasties, and things that go bump in the night. Good Lord, deliver us. Old litany. So, from ghoulies to ghosties, from long-leggedy beasties, and things that go bump in the night. Good Lord, deliver us. Visions of a parallel world. So man, who here seems principal alone, perhaps acts second to some sphere unknown, touches some wheel, or verges to some goal. 'Tis but a part we see, and not the whole. Alexander Pope, Essay on Man. On June I wonder if I should. So first of all, let's check this out. Okay, I wonder if I could expand it. And I'll just have to learn how to use this so I can see better. On June 15, 1952, in the jungles Yucatan, an archaeological expedition led by Alberto Ruz and La Hailier and 3 companions made a remarkable discovery. The team was investigating the impressive Planicu Mountains. Did I say pronounce Planicu? Located in the state of Chiapas, on the site of a well-known Mayan city that scientists were busy restoring and mapping in systematic fashion. Yucatan is a region of constant humidity and high temperature. The tropical vegetation has caused considerable damage to the temples and pyramids erected by the Mayans. They never say that in quotes, and I don't know if we know that for certain. Whose civilization was marked by a genius of its architects and is thought to have declined in the 1st century of our era, disappearing almost completely about the 9th century. That is, at the time of Charlemagne's empire in Europe. One of the most impressive constructions on the Palenque site is the Pyramid of the Inscriptions, an enormous truncated pyramid with a long stairway in front. The pyramid is of a somewhat unusual design, for on the top is a large temple. The purpose of the monument was unknown until Haluliar and his companions suggested that it might have been built as a tomb for some exceptional king or illustrious priest. It also could have been a time capsule, somehow to remind people in the up-and-coming cataclysm of the past peoples. I just brought that in there. Led by this idea, they began to search the temple at the top of the pyramid for some passage or stairway leading directly into the monument. On June 15, 1952, they discovered a long flight of stairs going down through the enormous mass and actually underground level. The passage was built after the traditional Mayan fashion, and the inclined walls giving the enclosure a high conical shape ending with a narrow ceiling. Some Indian huts in Yucatan are still built in this way. The most efficient design in the tropical climate, since it allows hot air to rise, thereby providing a relatively comfortable temperature inside the hut. At the bottom of the temple passage stairway was a splendid crypt, and in the crypt was a sarcophagus covered with a single carved stone measuring 12 feet by 10 inches thick. The slab weighed about 6 tons. This fantastic scene depicted by the artist had not suffered. It came to light in every detail. The archaeologists are completely at a loss to interpreting its meaning. The Mayans are supposed to have vanished without having invented even the rudiments of technology. Some archaeologists doubt that they knew the wheel, and yet the design on the Placu sarcophagus appears to show a very complex and sophisticated device with a man at the controls of an intricate piece of machinery, noting that the man is depicted with his knees brought up towards his chest and his back into a complicated mechanism from which flames are seen to flow. Several people among them, Soviet science writer Alexander Kazansky, I don't know how to pronounce you guys' names, Kazantsevs? I just want to say that, Kazantsev, had speculated that the Mayans had actually been in control and contact with visitors from the superior civilization. Visitors who used spaceships. Kazantsev's interpretation is difficult to prove. However, the only object we know today closely resembling the Mayan design is a space capsule. The demigod for whom sarcophagus encrypt. All right, let me try this. The demigod from whom sarcophagus, crypt, and pyramid were built with such splendid craftsmanship by the Mayan artists is something of a puzzle too. The body is radically different from the morphology of the Mayans as we imagined them. The corpse is that of a man nearly 6 feet tall and about 8 inches taller than the average Mayan. According to Pierre Honor, the sarcophagus was made for the great white god Quetzalcoatl, Quetzalcoatl. I just assumed that. But no final clue to the mystery had yet been found. In the tropical jungles of Central America, where dozens of temples and pyramids are still built under the exuberant vegetation have not yet yielded the secret of the Palenque sarcophagus. I will get back to this reading. I need to go to the bank. By the way, if Bobby Lowdown hears this, thank you so much for your donation. I wish other people do it. You're the only person that keeps consistently showing up and at the best time. The donation you gave me is going to go towards Grammarly for my writing my book, which I'm now 13,000 words into and got a long way to go. I'm now just finishing up my second encounter with a Sasquatch. In quotes, Sasquatch or Bigfoot in quotes. Okay. It's Mike. The 14 digital shaman. The Lord of O.R.D. I'm going to continue with my reading. I need to take a break from my writing my book, and you probably can't see that. Think about it. Yeah, so JACQUES VALLEE. Hey, look at that. JACQUES VALLEE, we use that one. JACQUES VALLEE passport to Magonia on UFOs, Folklore, Parallel Worlds. That's not too bad. I think I know I couldn't have done a better job with my circumstances to have written more than 13,000 words in a week. I did it. So it looks like it might take at least a month and a half just to write the book. They say you got to have around 80,000 words. Apparently, publishers not that interested in number of pages. They want number of words. And you know, the reason why I am concerned about a publisher is so that people have access to my book. If I was 30 years younger, maybe, running around, exerting a lot of energy and resources, if I had the health, basically, to you know, go to different conventions and all, peddling my book, I might have done it, but I don't really want to do it. I want to do my research. That's what I want to do, and I want to share my research with the rest of the world. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe in the end, only a handful of people will ever see my book or read it, and just like they see my videos. So, and I could do the YouTube channel differently. I can make a whole bunch of short videos and try to pump up the numbers and turn it as, you know, but it's about the research, so I don't know. Can't do everything. You gotta make your conscious decisions in what direction you want to go. So part of the research is reading books. So Jacques Vallee's book, Passport to Magonia, is supposed to be a classic. This book is 394 pages, give or take, basically 400 pages. So it's going to take a while to read, and take at least a week or two to do this. Let's get into it. The Age of the Gods. In the literature of religion, that flying objects from celestial countries are most commonly encountered, along with descriptions of the organization, nature, and philosophy of the occupants. Indeed, several writers have consistently pointed out that the fundamental text of every religion refers to the contact of the human community with a superior race of beings from the sky. This terminology is used in particular in the Bible, where it is said, "They came from a far country, from the ends of heaven, even the Lord and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land." And it makes one think about cataclysm and the electromagnetic nature of this world. So, and also, you know, it's questionable that they're really talking about aliens. Maybe there's interdimensional or interterrestrial beings that pop in and out of our awareness. They've always been around us regardless. Maybe there really is a soul trap matrix that we live in, right? That they feast upon us and our emotions. Somehow we're trapped here. The visitors have the power to fly through the air using luminous craft, sometimes called celestial chariots. With these manifestations are associated impressive physical and meteorological displays, which the primitive authors call whirlwind, pillars of fire, etc. Yeah. The occupants of these craft, to whom popular imagery will later ascribe wings and luminosity, are similar to man and communicate with him. They are organized under a strict military system. The chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them. Gustave Doré, a French artist who has illustrated splendid editions of the Bible, has left a beautiful engraving showing these celestial chariots and the full power of their fantastic flight, speeding above the mountains and the clouds in the abyss. A period of the early history of Japan ending about 3000 BC has received the name Jomon era. During that period, an important artistic activity was the making of earthen statues. At first, these statues were very simple, small in size, they were made to represent human beings. But in the middle of the period, the artisans started to make larger statues, showing standard features of a drastically different design. Large chests, arch-shaped legs, arch-shaped legs, very short arms, large heads, obviously covered with complete helmets. On the nature, let's get back there. On the nature of the helmets, archaeologists disagree. In 1924, because he thought that its expression looked like that found on a wooden mask made in Africa, Dr. Gento Hasabi, I guess that's what Hasabi, proposed that the headgear was in reality a mourning mask used at burials. In the Tohoku area of northern Japan, however, some of the most elaborate statues of this kind show something like a pair of sunglasses, huge eyes with an insect-like horizontal slit, a truly remarkable design. Supposedly, the statues of the latter part of the Jomo era were first made with earth, then copied on rock or soft stone. Those found in Kumochai, Nabu province, are carved in rock and show helmets. One of them in Jomo Dogu, dated 4300 BC, and excavated at the Amadeki ruins in Iwak Prefecture, shows details of the front part of the helmet, with a round opening at the base of the nose below what appears to be a large perforated plate. The resemblance of the Dagu costume to the pressure suit of the type used by divers and astronauts is the relevant factor here. It has led some students of the Jomo era to speculate that the statues might indicate the distant memory of visitors from space. It also could be us, our own ancestors. So there's nothing to think about. Could be, you never know. I'm just saying. The headgear, with its filter and large goggles, and the necks with wide collars, and the open-piece suit, certainly bear a close resemblance to modern space gear. The fact that the sculptors made these figurines hollow as another puzzling element. Altogether, the Far East is rich in resource of reports of supernatural beings and celestial sights, as we shall see. Sorcerers from the clouds. It is common belief that the term flying saucers was made in America. Was it not coined by an American businessman in 1947? Was not the first official investigation of the mystery by military authorities started in the United States a few weeks later? Well, yes, but a farmer from Texas described a dark flying object as a large saucer in the as early as January 1875.5. I guess that would. And ancient Japanese records inform us that on October 27, 11,180, an unusual luminous object described as an earthware vessel flew just make sure we get this right, flew from a mountain in the Kaiai province, beyond the northeast mountain of Fukuhara at midnight. After a while, the object changed its course and was lost to sight at the southern horizon, leaving a luminous trail. In view of the time which has elapsed since the sighting, as U.S. Air Force investigators like to say, it would be difficult to obtain additional data today. It is interesting, however, to find medieval Japanese chronicler speaking of flying earthenware. The Japanese must also have received for having organized the first official investigation, and the story is so amusing and parallels so well recent activities of the U.S. Air Force that I cannot resist reproducing it here. The date was September 24, 1235, 7 centuries before our time. And General Yansumi was camping with his army. Suddenly, a curious phenomenon was observed. Mysterious sources of light were seen to swing and circle in the southwest, moving in loops until the early morning. General Sumic, I think this is C, ordered what we would now term a full-scale scientific investigation, and his consultants set to work. Fairly soon they made the report. The whole thing is completely natural, General, they said in substance. It is only the wind making the stars sway. My source of information for this report, Yusuke J. Matsumura of Yokohama adds, sadly, scholars on government pay have always made ambitious statements like this. Celestial phenomena seems to have been so commonplace in Japan's skies during the Middle Ages that they influenced human events in a direct way. Panic, riots, and disruptive social movements were often linked to celestial apparitions. The Japanese peasants had the disagreeable tendency to interpret the signs of heaven as strong indications that their revolts and demands against the feudal system or against foreign invaders were just, and as assurance that their rebellions would be crowned with success. Numerous examples of such situations can be quoted. For instance, on September 12, 1271, the famous priest Nichiren was about to be beheaded at Tatsunokuchi, Kamakura, when there appeared in the sky an object like a full moon, shiny and bright. Needless to say, the officials panicked and the execution was not carried out. On August 3rd, 989, during a period of great social unrest, 3 round objects of unusual brilliance were observed. Later, they joined together. In 1361, a flying object described as being shaped like a drum, about 20 feet in diameter, emerged from the inland sea off western Japan. On January 2nd, 1458, a bright object resembling a full moon was seen in the sky. This apparition was followed by curious signs in heaven and earth. People were amazed. 2 months later, on March 17, 1458, 5 stars appeared circling the moon. They changed color 3 times and vanished suddenly. The rulers were utterly distressed and believed that the sign announced a great disturbance throughout the land. All the people in Kyoto were expecting disasters to follow, and the emperor himself was very upset. 10 years later, on March 8, 1468, a dark object which made a sound like a wheel flew from Mount Kasuga toward the west at midnight. The combination of the sound and the darkness of the flying object is difficult to explain in natural terms. On January 3rd, 1569, in the evening, a flaming star appeared in the sky. It was regarded as an omen of serious changes, announcing the fall of the Chu dynasty. Such phenomena continued during the 17th and 18th centuries. For instance, in May of 1606, fireballs were continuously reported over Kyoto, and on one night, a whirling ball of fire resembling a red wheel hovered near the Naijo castle and was observed by many of the samurai. The next morning, the city was filled with rumors, and the people muttered, "This must be a portent." One noon in September 1702, the sun took on a bloody color several days in succession, and cotton-like threads fell down, and apparently falling from the sun itself. Phenomenon reminiscent of the 1917 observation in Fatima, Portugal. Chaos spread all over Japan on January 2nd, 1749, when 3 round objects like the moon appeared and were seen for 4 days. such a state of social unrest developed and seemed so clearly linked with the mysterious celestial objects that the government decided to act. Riot participants were executed, but confusion became total when people observed 3 moons aligned in the sky and several days later 2 suns. Undoubtedly, the Japanese experienced natural phenomena similar to mirages and incorrectly interpreted them in the context of social rebellion. Wink, 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 wink. From this distance, however, it is impossible to separate the reliable observations from the emotional interpretation. What matters here is the link between certain unusual phenomena observed or imagined and the alteration of the witness's behavior. In other words, these accounts show that it is possible to affect the lives of many people by showing them displays that are beyond their comprehension, or by convincing them that they have observed such phenomena, or by keeping alive the belief that their destiny is somehow controlled by occult forces. A brief examination of legendary elements of Western Europe in the Middle Ages will show that a similar rumor about strange flying objects and supernatural manifestations was spreading there too. Indeed, Pierre Bastua, I don't know how to pronounce it, Pierre Bastua, and as 1575 remarked, "The face of heaven has been so often disfigured by bearded hairy comets, torches, flames, columns, spears, shields, dragons, duplicate moons, suns, and other similar things, that if one wanted to tell in an ordinarily fashion those that have happened since the birth of Jesus Christ only, the inquire about the causes of their origin, that lifetime of a single man would not be enough." According to the 1594 edition of the same book, this is what happened a few miles from Tübingen, Germany, on December 5th, 1577 at 7 a.m. About the sun, many dark clouds appeared, such as we are wont to see during great storms, and soon afterward have come from the sun other clouds, all fiery and bloody, and others yellow as saffron. Out of these clouds have come forth reverberations resembling large, tall, and wide hats. The earth showed itself yellow and bloody, and seemed to be covered with hats, tall and wide, which appeared in various clouds, such as red, blue, green, and most of them black. It is easy for everyone to think of the meaning of this miracle, which is that God wants to induce man to amend their lives and make penance. May Almighty God inspire all men to recognize Him. Amen. Especially interesting to us will be the fact that these reports of celestial objects are linked with claims of contacts with strange creatures, a situation parallel to that of modern-day UFO landings. Since these rumors have been puzzling to many authorities in the Roman Catholic Church, perhaps it is appropriate to begin with a quotation from the life of Saint Anthony, the Egyptian-born founder of Christian monasticism, who lived about 300 A.D. in the desert. Saint Anthony met with strange beings of small stature who fled after a brief conversation with him. Before long, in a small rocky valley shut in on all sides, he sees a mannequin with hooded snout. A mannequin with hooded snout, horned forehead, and extremities like goat's feet. When he saw this, Anthony, like a good soldier, seized the shield of faith and the helmet of hope. The creature nonetheless began to offer him the fruit of the palm tree to support him on his journey, as it were pledges of peace. Anthony perceived this, stopped, and asked who he was. The answer received from him was this: "I am a mortal being and one of the inhabitants of the desert, whom the Gentiles deluded by various forms of error worship under the name of fauns, satyrs, and incubi. I am sent to represent my tribe. We pray you in our behalf to entreat the favor of your Lord and ours, who we have learnt came once to save the world, and whose sound has gone forth into all the earth." As he uttered such words as these, the aged travelers checked streams of tears, the marks of his deep feeling, which he shed in the fullness of his joy. He rejoiced over the glory of Christ and the destruction of Satan, and the marveling all the while that he could understand the satyr's language, and striking the ground with his stay, he said, "Woe to thee, Alexandria, who instead of God worships monsters. Woe to thee, harlot city, into which have flowed together the demons of the whole earth. What will you say now, beast? Speak of Christ. You instead of God worship monsters." He had not finished speaking when, as if on wings, the wild creature fled away. Let no one scruple to believe this incident. Its truth is supported by what took place when Constantine was on the throne, a matter of which the whole world was witnessed. For a man of that kind was brought alive to Alexandria and shown as a wonderful sight to the people. Afterwards, his lifeless body, to prevent its decay through the summer heat, was preserved in salt and brought to Antioch, that the emperor might see it. 9. Again, with this story, we are faced with an account the truthfulness of which would be futile to question. The lives of the early saints are full of amazing miracles that should not be taken as literary figures rather than as scientific observations. The important point is that basic religious texts contain such material giving, so to speak, letters of nobility into a category of beings widely believed to be of supernatural origin. Such observations as St. Anthony's will prove fundamental when religious authorities are faced with the problem of evaluating medieval observations of beings from the sky. Claims of evocation of demons by occult means, and even modern miracles. The details and the terminology of such observations as St. Anthony's are not important to this study. It is enough to note that in St. Anthony's account, the strange being is indifferently termed a satyr and a mannequin, while the saint himself states that the Gentiles also used the name faun and incubus. Saint Jermaine speaks of a man of this kind. Throughout our study of these legends, we shall find the same confusion. In the above account, however, it is at least clear to St. Anthony that the creature is neither an angel nor a demon. If it had been, he would have recognized it immediately. In the 20th century Old Indian book of primitive astronomy, Surya Siddhanta, Surya Siddhanta, it is said that below the moon and above the clouds revolve the Siddhas, perfected men, and the Vidyadharas, possessor of knowledge. I don't know if I said those right or not. According to Andrew Thomas, Indian tradition holds that the Siddhas could become very heavy at will or as light as a feather, travel through space and disappear from sight. Observations of beings who flew across the sky and landed are also found in the writings of O.R.D, Archbishop of Lyons, France. O.R.D, who was born in Spain in 779 and came to France when 3 years old, became Archbishop at 37 when he died in 840. One of the most celebrated and learned prelates of the 9th century. He left an interesting account of a particularly significant incident. We have, however, seen and heard many men plunged in such great stupidity, sunk in such depths of folly, as to believe that there is a certain region which they call Magonia, whence ships shall sail in the clouds in order to carry back to that region those fruits of the cartli, which are destroyed by hail and tempest. The sailors, paying rewards to the storm of wizards, and themselves receiving corn and other produce. Out of the number of those whose blind folly was deep enough to allow them to believe these things possible, I saw several exhibiting a certain concourse of people. 4 persons in bonds, 3 men and a woman, who they said had fallen from these same ships. After keeping them for some days in captivity, they had brought them before the assembled multitude, as we have said, in our presence, to be stoned. But truth prevailed. We shall see in the following pages that the occultists give a quite different interpretation of the same incident. The 7 visitors of Fascicu Cardan, why did I get that? Fascicus Cardan. Damn. Fascicus Cardan. Throughout medieval times, a major current of thought distinct from official religion existed, culminating in the works of the alchemists and hermetics. Among such groups were to be found some of the early modern scientists and men remarkable for the strength of their independent thinking and for their adventurous life, such as Paracelsus, that's what it is, such as Paracelsus, the nature of the beings who mysteriously appeared, dressed in shiny garments or covered with dark hair, and with whom communication was so hard to establish, intrigued these men intensely. These were at first to relate these strange beings to the creatures described in the Bible and in the writings of the early Kabbalists. According to the biblical writers, the heavenly hierarchy includes beings of humans from form called cherubim, a name that in Hebrew means full of knowledge. Ezekiel described them in the following terms: their appearance was like burning coals of fire, and like appearance of lamps. It went up and down among the living creatures. The fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. Are the mysterious creatures who fly through the sky and land in the cloud ships, a gullbird's authority notwithstanding of the same race as the angels? Asked the old philosophers. No, because they are mortals. The Hebrews used to call these beings who are between angels and men Sadaim, and the Greeks, transposing the letters and adding but one syllable, called them daimonos. Among the ancient philosophers, these demons were held to be an aerial race ruling over the elements, mortal, engendering an unknown in these century to those who rarely seek truth in her ancient dwelling place, which is to say, in the Kabbalah and in the theology of the Hebrews, who possessed the special art of holding communion with the aerial people and of conversing with all these inhabitants of the air. Plutarch even had a complete theory on the natures of these beings. He thinks it absurd that there should be no means between two extremes of an immortal and a mortal being, that there cannot be in nature so vast a flaw without some intermediate kind of life partaking of them both, as therefore we find in the intercourse between the soul and the body to be made by the animal spirits, so between divinity and humanity there is this species of daemons. It is not surprising then to find that the philosophers disagreed with Agarbard, I don't even know if I'm saying that name right, on the nature of these three men and the women who were captured by the mob in Lyons. In vain does a philosopher bring to light the falsity of the chimeras people have fabricated and present manifest proofs to the contrary, no matter what his experience, nor how sound his argument and reasoning. Let but a man with a doctor's hood come along and write them down as false. Experience demonstrations count for naught, and it is henceforward beyond the power of truth to re-establish her empire. People would rather believe in the doctor's hood than in their own eyes. It's so interesting. He says the doctor's hood, and the things I film in the trees of individuals wearing hoods, hooded capes and gowns or hoodies. I'm saying, telling you the truth. Oh my God. There has been in your native France a memorable proof of this popular mania. The famous capitalist Zed, and I don't know how to say this right, Chias, in the region of your Pippin took it into his head to convince the world that the elements are inhabited by those peoples whose nature I have just described to you, the expedient of which he bethought himself was to advise the sylphs to show themselves. So I guess it'd be like sylphs. That's what the sylphs. Sylphs. To advise the sylphs to show themselves in the air to everybody. They did so spontaneously. Lyses, Chinese, Lyses beings were seen in the air in human form. So Lyses beings were seen in the air in human form, sometimes in battle array, marching in good order, halting under arms, or encamped beneath magnificent tents, sometimes on wonderful constructed aerial ships, whose flying squadrons roved at the will of Zephyrs, at the will of Zephyrs. I don't know. What happened? Do you suppose the ignorant age would so much as reason as to the nature of these marvelous spectacles? The people straightway believed that sorcerers had taken possession of the air for the purpose of raising tempests and bringing hail upon their crops. The learned theologians and jurists were soon of the same opinion as the masses. The emperor believed it as well, and this ridiculous chimera went so far to the wise Charlemagne, and after him Louis the debonair, imposed grievous penalties upon all the supposed tyrants of the air. You may see an account of this in the first chapter of the Capitularies of these two emperors. The sylphs, seeing the populace, the penitents, and even the crowned heads, thus alarmed against them, determined to dissipate the bad opinion people had of their innocent fleet by carrying off men from every locality and showing them their beautiful women, their republic, and their manner of government, and then setting them down again on earth in diverse parts of the world. They carried out their plan. The people who saw these men as they were descending came running from every direction, convinced beforehand that they were sorcerers who had separated from their companions in order to come and scatter poisons on the fruit and in the springs. And carried away by the frenzy with which such fancies inspired them, they hurried these innocents off to the torture. The great number of them who were put to death by fire and water throughout the kingdom is incredible. One day, among the other instances, it chanced at Lyons that 3 men and a woman were seen descending from these aerial ships. The entire city gathered about them, crying out they were magicians, and were sent by Grimaldus, Duke of Beneventum, Charlemagne's enemy, to destroy the French harvests. In vain the 4 innocents sought to vindicate themselves by saying that they were their own country folk, and had been carried away a short time since by miraculous men who had shown them unheard of marvels, and had desired to give them an account of what they had seen. The frenzied populace paid no heed to their defense, and were on the point of casting them into the fire, when the worthy Agobard, Bishop of Lyons, who, having been a monk in that city, had acquired considerable authority there, came running at the noise, and having heard the accusations of the people and the defense of the accused, gravely pronounced that both one and the other were false, that it was not true that these men had fallen from the sky, and that what they said they had seen there was impossible. The people believed what their good father O.R.D. said rather than their own eyes, and were pacified, set at liberty the 4 ambassadors of the sylphs, and received with wonder the book which O.R.D. wrote to confirm the judgment which he had pronounced. Thus the testimony of these 4 witnesses was rendered vain. You know, I was thinking about what I'm just reading there, if you could even understand what I just read there. I'm not a great reader, obviously. But reading it, I am comprehending some of it. And I'm thinking about the fact that what it'd be like if you were one of those 4 people, one of those 3 men and that woman. What if you're a person and you really did have contact and interaction with interdimensional, interterrestrial beings, and you told a story, and I mean, today you might not necessarily be tortured, tormented, treated, you're still going to be treated like crap from a whole lot of people. And it's not that far from it, us falling right back into what we just read. You know what I mean? Something to think about. Does one really want to have these encounters and experiences? From my own simple experience, my experiences, you know, of Sasquatch and filming stuff and having my own spiritual experiences, and I'm writing them, and I know that it's going to alienate a lot of people. A lot of people are not going to accept it. Some will find it entertaining and will read it anyways. Some will believe it because they've had their own encounters. Many will just dismiss it. It's almost like if, say, you are something from the other dimension or from the other side or from up there or wherever, and you come down here and you have all these endless reports of previous incidences in which nothing but negative happened to folks before you, would you even want to interact with us? It's something to think about. It's kind of, talking about a double-edged sword for both parties. The human and the other thing, whatever you want to call it, the different being interacting. How beneficial it is for both of them. I don't know. Such stories were so well established during the Middle Ages that the problem of communicating with the elementals became a major preoccupation of the Hermetics and an important part of their philosophy. Paracelsus wrote an entire book on the nature of these beings, but he took great pains to warn the reader of the dangers of an association with them. Do not want to say here because of the ills which might befall those who would try it, through which compact one associates with these beings, thanks to which compact they appear to us and speak to us. And in a treatise entitled Why These Beings Appear to Us, Lie represented the following ingenious theory. Everything God creates manifests itself to man sooner or later. Sometimes God confronts him with the devil and the spirits in order to convince him of their existence. From the top of heaven, he also sends the angels, his servants. Thus these beings appear to us not in order to stay among us and become allied with us, but in order for us to become able to understand them. Their apparitions are scarce. To tell the truth, but why should it be otherwise? It is not enough for one of us to see an angel in order for us all to believe in the other angels. Paracelsus was probably born in 1491, and in the very same year, Fessius Cardan recorded his observations of 7 strange visitors directly related to the creatures of the elements who were so puzzling to the great philosopher. The incident is preserved in the writings of his son, Jerome Cardan, 1501 to 1576, who is well known for us today as a mathematician. Jerome Cardan, lived in Milan, and was not only a mathematician but also an occultist and a physician. In his book De Substantialite, Cardan explains that he had often heard his father tell the particular story and finally searched for his record of the event, which reads as follows. August 13, 1491, when I had completed the customary rites and about the 20th hour of the day, 7 men duly appeared to me clothed in silken garments resembling Greek togas, and wearing, as it were, shiny shoes. The undergarments beneath their glistening and ruddy breastplates seemed to be wrought of crimson and were of extraordinary glory and beauty. Nevertheless, all were not dressed in this fashion, but only 2 seemed to be of nobler rank than the others. The taller of them, who was of ruddy complexion, was attended by 2 companions, and the second, who was fairer and shorter stature, by 3. Thus in all there were 7. He left no record as to whether their heads were covered. They were about 40 years of age, but they did not appear to be above 30. What? They were 40 years of age, but they did not appear to be above 30. That did not make sense. When asked who they were, they said that they were men composed, as it were, of air, and subject to birth and death. It was true that their lives were much longer than ours, and might even reach to 300 years duration. Questioned on the immortality of our soul, they affirm that nothing survives which is peculiar to the individual. When my father asked them why they did not reveal treasures to men if they knew where they were, they answered that it was forbidden by a peculiar law under the heaviest penalties for anyone to communicate this knowledge to men. They remained with my father for over 3 hours. That's a hell of a long time. But when he questioned them as to the cause of the universe, they were not agreed. The tallest of them denied that God had made the world from eternity. On contrary, the other added that God created it from moment to moment, so that should he desist for an instant, the world would perish. Be this fact or fable, sound it stands. Nearly 3 centuries later, in September of 1768, a young man of 16 was traveling to the University Leipzig with 2 passengers from Frankfurt. Among the journey was accomplished in the rain, and the coach sometimes had trouble moving uphill. On other occasions, when the passengers had left their seat to walk behind the horses, the young man noticed a strange luminous object at the ground level. All at once, in a ravine on the right-hand side of the way, I saw a sort of amphitheater, wonderfully illuminated in a funnel-shaped space. Funnel-shaped, there were innumerable little lights gleaming, ranging step fashions over one another. They shone so brilliantly that the eye was dazzled. But what still more confused the sight was that they did not keep still, but jumped about here and there, as well downwards from above as vice versa, in every direction. The greater part of them, however, remained stationary and beamed on. It was only with the greatest reluctance that I suffered myself to be called more closely. The position which questioned said that the postilion when questioned said that he knew nothing about such a phenomenon, but that there was in the neighborhood an old stone quarry, the excavation of which was filled with water. Now, whether this was a phenomena of will-o'-the-wisps or a company of luminous creatures, I will not decide. The young man in question was Goethe. You will find this citing in the 6th book of his autobiography. According to Kenneth Anger, to whom I am indebted, really, Kenneth Anger, for this very interesting discovery, would the German poet and scientist have had occasion to learn more about the luminous creatures? He had lived in the 20th century. If the Paracelsus came back, would he find new material for his theories on the nature of the strange and fugitive races of beings from the sky? We can safely hypothesize that their attention would be immediately directed to the files of UFO landings. In the next paragraphs, we shall examine some of the recent cases they might have found of interest. What do they prove? Nothing. They only indicate that if there ever was a time for scientists to bow their heads with awe before the variety and power of the natural phenomena in human imagination, it is to be found in our own age of technology and rational thought, not in the confusion of medieval philosophies. That's a good place to stop. Hopefully the reading gets a little bit easier, but if not, then so be it. I'm enjoying it. Sorry about the brutal reading, but fascinating. Japan, Germany, France, Egypt was represented in that. Of course, it's always the Hebraic Jew, the Jewish Bible is always in it, because we can't seem to run away from that thing, no matter what. Yeah, very interesting stuff. Cool. By the time you hear this, hopefully, so I recorded this on 11/4/2023. I have 13,000 words in my book. Hopefully by the time you hear this, which will probably be in a week or two, I will have had double that at least, hopefully.
You're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind.
Jesus.